Hey, fellow Ristopians, welcome back to Ristopia. I thought it's Saturday here today. I thought I'd really best do a new video because there are quite a few new subscribers joining. Thank you very much for that. Hopefully that means I'm doing something right and you like the content. Interactions going up more, so which I love. Ask any questions or comment if I get things wrong, etc, etc. I don't mind. Be as rude as you like. Speaking of which, I did get some flack for a previous video, the one that said that this, what was it, the watch that actually is better than a Rolex. I did get some flack for that. I just wanted to clear up one point. I don't think that Tudor is better than Rolex, and I was particularly talking about this particular piece. I wasn't even saying that this watch, the Black Bay 31 S&G, so ladies Tudor, the new version with the in-house movement, I wasn't saying that. And a very Rolex Oyster style case. Fantastic upgrade over the previous model. I wasn't even saying that this is a better watch than a Lady Datejust. The point I was trying to say was that it might be a better purchase than the Lady Datejust, rather than it's a better watch. Now, I know a lot of videos say buy this watch, not a Rolex, and I don't agree with most of those. Any of them really. I don't think I've ever seen one that I agreed with. But I think this is as near as it gets for me. This is the one that first made me think that might be better to buy a lady than the Rolex Lady Datejust. Although ironically, the lady probably wouldn't agree with that. But anyway, you can watch the video if you want. But yeah, I wasn't saying Tudor are better in any ever. I wasn't saying even that this particular watch was better. I was just saying it makes a lot of sense to purchase, but probably from a guy's point of view more than a lady's point. Anyway, just that. What else did I get flagged for? Invicta. Yeah, I do like my Invictas. I'd love to go to the Invicta Museum in, I think there's a museum, Invicta boutique in Invicta Museum. I'd go there as well. The Invicta boutique somewhere, I think in Europe. I'm not sure if it was a wind up or if it was real. It might have been a mock up, but I remember seeing something that it was an Invicta shop and it said buy one get 3 free, so 4 for the price of 1. Now, being that list price is $800, even 200 each is still expensive, so it's still not a good deal. But and finding 4 that you liked all in one go is not going to be easy. If you give them as presents, you'll soon lose friends. But yeah, I'd like to go. I just like the brand. I love watching them on shopping channels, not just because of the brand, but because of how shopping channels are with watches. But yeah, I do like them. I do genuinely like them. This one's staying, and it is going to get modded now. In the week, Maina Kent, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, said, whatever you do, and this was questioning whether I keep this and mod it or send it back. Maina Kent said, whatever you do, you're still putting lipstick on a pig, which really made me laugh and still does. Yeah, completely true. But, sometimes a pig with lipstick on is a fun thing. I don't know. That's all kinds of wrong, isn't it? But I do get genuine pleasure from Invictas. They do put a smile in my face, and when I put one on the wrist, it just does make me smile. And I think that's what loving watches is about ultimately. So for whatever reason it does that, it does that, and they're £100 each, so, or less depending on the model, but averagely. So yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing. But yeah, flame away, guys, flame away. I don't mind. So what else has happened? Pagani. Oh, my little embellishment. I haven't seen one of these until very recently, and it went on sort of offer, so I thought I'd give it a go. A Rubik's line, so 3x1. I've never seen one of those before. I guess it's been out years. Yeah, I think it's definitely an ornament. Less of an ornament probably than a 3x3, which I have here, which I do think is a lovely ornament. You get, I did have a little stand that it sits in at that sort of angle. I think they are an iconic design classic, and I do love the Rubik's, the logo. But yeah, so I got this line one, which is absolutely rubbish because it doesn't really work very well as an ornament as that one does. And it's absolutely, it's very difficult. When you try and turn it, everything just contorts. one of those fell out earlier. You couldn't do a quick with this because it bends too much. It's got no solidity, so completely pointless, but fun. Bit like an Invicta, I suppose. I'm a sucker for these pointless fun things. But yeah, that's my little embellishment today. Absolutely useless. Pagani design. So the two new watches that I got. I did say I'd never buy any more watches, but I saw these two and I couldn't resist. I am moving on some of my other Paganis and watches, so to make some space under the bed, and financially. But yeah, I couldn't resist this. So Pagani design 1733, the Rolex Milgauss homage. I'm going to say homage. I think it's just I normally call them fake-ages, but that's sort of rude, and I try not to be rude. But a copy of a Rolex Milgauss. Now I actually really like this. So the other Pagani's coming in. So I bought the Oyster Perpetual 41 Blue homage to see how I felt about, because I was actually trying to get an Oyster Perpetual 41 for a wedding. Didn't happen, so I got a Grand Seiko, which I actually kind of do prefer in many ways. They're just very different. They're both lovely, but it is a really nice Grand Seiko. Anyway, you can watch that video if you want to see what one I got. But yes, I got this to see how I felt about the Oyster Perpetual 41. During that time, I've never really liked the Milgauss, the Rolex Milgauss. It's always been a bit like ugh, what's that? You know, oh, that funny lightning bolt hand. Ugh. My OCD couldn't really take it. And then it kind of grew on me when I was looking at the OP41. They had a Milgauss in, so I had a look at that. And there were some differences between them that made me prefer the Milgauss. And then it just kind of grew on me. But yeah, they're discontinued now. I do think they'll come back in an improved format. Not sure how similar this looks to the real thing. I don't think I've ever seen a blue dial Milgauss. I only saw a black dial, which I didn't like. But I'm imagining that the real thing, I'm not too keen on this, to be honest. The hour hand, the second hand does annoy me. I don't know if I like that colour. But the real thing, I think, would look very different. The green sapphire crystal, I don't know if you can see that, but if you don't know, that's the big thing about the Milgauss, one of the big things about the Milgauss. It's very anti-magnetic, but it's no more anti-magnetic than a load of Amigas that are available these days. But in its day, the Milgauss was being anti-magnetic was its big deal, was its party trick. Hence the lightning bolt hand. But I think the real thing would look much, much better than this. Oh, that's what I was saying. Yeah. So one of the things is it's got a green sapphire. And I don't know if you can see that, but there's a green ring around the edge. I, for years, thought that was actually just an insert of green underneath the crystal, but it is actually, the whole sapphire is green. It doesn't look very green on this. The pictures of this online make that green look very, very vivid. In real life, you only really just about notice it. Possibly, I don't think people would notice that green, particularly wearing this on your wrist. Whereas the real thing, it's very obvious that someone's got a Milgauss on because of that. So I think the dial color would be very different. So I think that the real thing would feel a lot different to this, or look a lot. It'll definitely feel a lot different. It will look a lot different to this. Whereas the Oyster Perpetual 41 Blue, and I have had a genuine article on the channel, actually looks, although this one's got a date, it actually looks a lot like this, even though it's different sizes. So the copy is 39mm, 20mm lug width. The real thing's 41mm, 20mm lug width, 20mm lug width. Sorry. Excuse me. Start again. This is 39/20. The real thing is 41/21. Obviously feels very different, but they do look, when you swap between the two, they visually are very, very similar. And I think a lot of that is because of the very bright, the very vivid sunburst, which I'm not massively keen on. I would prefer it if it was a slightly more matte effect on the dial. It's very, very sunbursty. But this, yeah, so this does look, very similar to the real thing, apart from, size and stuff. But whereas I think the Milgauss if you had a real Milgauss blue dial on and then you switched between this, I think it would be very obvious that they're very different looking watches. But yeah, and the other one, I mentioned that had a date. The other one I've got here, which I got afterwards, is you can actually get this one now with or without a date, but at the time there was only a date option. So I then bought the Tiffany dial without the date. And part of the thing about the OP41 for me is the double batons and not having a date. So, but yeah, so I bought this one. They are all of these are the same cases and same bracelets. The difference is, and the reason I really want to show you these today was, one thing I don't like about these two, and indeed the real Oyster Perpetual 41, it has a sort of a rounded, well, it's not even, it's like a quarter curve. There's probably a name for that type of bezel, but it looks like a carriage clock to me, a carriage clock bezel. And I don't really like that. It doesn't look as good as the chamfered flat edge, you know, so a flat 45-degree bezel on the Milgauss. This is the same bezel if it was on a Rolex that would be on a Datejust. So I kind of, in many ways, prefer the Datejust to the Oyster Perpetual 41, except it has obviously a date and a Cyclops, which I cannot stand. But it is, on the Milgauss is chunkier than the OP41 as well, which I quite liked. But going back to Pagani's, what I noticed on this was, it was interesting. So this is a brushed case and bracelet, all brushed bracelets. This one that I've got, brushed case but polished bezel. This one has polished lugs, whereas the newer version, I didn't notice this until today, the newer version without the date has brushed lugs, which look better. But what I also noticed is that what I really like about this, apart from, I thought it was just the bezel, but it's that bezel doesn't reflect anywhere near as much light as that one. So you can see the light is really reflecting off of that bezel. So you can just really tell that it's polished. Whereas, although this one's polished too, it is not really reflecting any light. I mean, it's reflecting images. You can see, you know, reflections of things in it, but it's not really reflecting very much light. So it has effectively a more brushed appearance, which just looks better. I just don't like that bezel, which is a shame. But it'd be nice if you could have a hybrid Datejust and, although I'm waving around a Milgauss clone, a sort of Datejust in the Rolex range and an OP41, but doesn't exist. But yeah, anyway, there's some Paganis. Hope you like that. That's I am really pleased with this. I am going to keep it. I'm moving some other Paganis on. I do like wearing these Paganis, and incredible value for money and just nice to knock around. I never like knocking any watches. But yeah, I like having them. They've got a reason. I had a reason for buying these two. That was really just to see if I like Tiffany coloured dials, which I don't. That one's going to go. No need to keep that. I probably will keep these two though. So that was a new watch. It was a little bit, if you do get one of these, they've all got the same bracelets. Not the easiest to. This one was incredibly stiff. It has a dive. Sorry, like what would you call it? A micro extension. It's not really a dive extension, I don't think. But on this one, it is. I'm trouble getting it back in. It is very stiff. And it took me. I'll get that back in later. It is very stiff, and you do have to pop that out to be able to. There's 3 micro adjust positions in there, pretty much the same size as one link, so they're not really that helpful. It's a shame there's not one more, but you do have to get that out in order to access the spring bar to move it along. And I really had to pull on it, almost to the point I thought I was going to break it. But yeah, I mean, very pleased with Pagani quality generally. I'm gonna keep. There's 3 I'm gonna keep. I've got a GMT Master 2 Batman that I'm going to keep, and I'm probably going to keep these 2. I'd love to swap that for one without dating, but that would just be expensive, I think. Yeah, I'll probably keep. I'll definitely keep this one. It is growing on me. Although, as I say, I'm not sure whether I would like the real thing after having this. But I do quite like this. I like having this. So, and the other new watch that came in, I know I said I wouldn't buy anymore, but as I say, I'm moving some on. It's a Casio Wave Scepter. Now, I saw this on Just One More Watch, Jodie's channel. It was in his watch roll, and it caught my eye then, and I then ordered this, and he has subsequently done a video on it. So well worth watching that if you think you might like this one. Now, why did I get this? Well, first of all, I was going to get it on the stainless steel one, which I often do, but the last Casio I got in steel, so I thought it might actually work better to get this one on the rubber. Although it actually is, it's very plastic, it's very light. That doesn't feel anywhere, that feels very plastic. It's probably the most plasticky strap I've ever felt. Compared to the Invicta, which is one of the more rubbery straps. I mean, that is just lovely and tactile, which is one of the reasons why, and it's two-tone, one of the reasons that I want to keep this and make the best of that, do some modding to that bezel side insert, I guess you'd call it, wouldn't it? It's got two inserts, one on the top and one at the side. Yeah, so very rubbery, very light. One of the reasons I didn't want the black one, on the website, the black one, I got this from Amazon US, Amazon US. It's a Japanese import, Japanese owned, JDM, Japanese domestic market watch, I believe, but for some reason it is for sale in America, so not quite sure how that works. But it is only in Japanese, so everything's in Japanese. The instructions are in Japanese. I had to go online to see how to set it. Found a very useful video on there of how to set it. And the reason I didn't want the black one was because if it was metal, it would be basically a coat, it would be plated. And if you scratch a plated watch, no matter how hard they say it is plated, when you scratch it, it becomes a silver scratch. And Jody, in his actual review of it, mentioned that this is actually plastic, which I kind of preferred, because although plastic is going to scratch, it got me out of having to buy a plated watch, which is something I really, really never want to do. Sorry if that sounds a bit, you know, a bit high end, but yeah. So I got this one. Being plastic was I saw as an advantage, and I really like the colour of it. I like Jody's. I like the gold on black. I don't normally like gold, but I do like it on the Grand Seiko. It's got a couple of bits of gold on there, and there's something about this that I thought that actually looks really nice. Also, this has got an inverted LCD, whereas the stainless steel one, maybe that might even be plastic. Obviously, the bracelet's going to be metal, but maybe the case is plastic, just silver plastic. It has a regular LCD, which just stands out like a sore thumb. This one just looks altogether nicer. And you can't change the bracelet. They're integrated bracelets on the steel one anyway. So I figured, all things considered, I'll get this one, and it was a tenner cheaper. One strange thing is that the clasp, which obviously has to be metal, is silver. So you've got a black coloured watch with a silver buckle, which is weird, but you know, I'm guessing they could have plated that. But as I've just said, I don't like plating. Maybe I'm happier that they didn't and they kept it silver. But yeah, really nice watch. So two things about it: it's Wave Scepter, as I've said, so it takes a radio signal. I imagined it did it like constantly, and so it would constantly be the right time. But it doesn't. I think it does it once a day, because when I set this, I've now set it to the correct time, so it is actually 25 to 11 in the UK. But when I first set it, it was an hour fast, or was it an hour slow? Can't remember. Hour fast, yeah. And obviously, I guess that was something to do with daylight saving. So what I did was I set it to Paris time, which is an hour ahead of us, hour behind us rather. No, hour ahead of us. Yeah, hour ahead of us, because it was an hour slow. Anyway, it was an hour different, and I used to be good at maths, and it was the right time. But this morning when I woke up, it was an hour fast, and that's because at some point in the night or early, I think someone said it's 8 a.m, but whether that's UK time or not, I'm not sure. But it once a day. I think it takes the signal from the atomic clock kind of type thing and resets the watch, which it obviously did overnight. I was very pleased with. I've now put it back to London time. It's quite easy to do from the video that I watched. There are some other bits and pieces on the watch that I haven't really researched how to use. So if you toggle, this is the function button, you toggle through there. I don't know if you can see this. So that's the battery power. Apparently it always says mid. Jodie mentioned this. It always says mid, no matter what the power is. Oh, it's tough solar as well. So not only is it got the radio signal, but it's solar powered. So that's the battery, the battery indicator for the solar cell. So that's really cool. I do have other solar powered watches, but not a Wave Scepter, which is why I wanted to try this. And so it's got world time, it's got an alarm. It's a very quiet beep, so I'm not sure how I haven't tried the alarm yet. I'm not sure whether that alarm's going to be, even audible to me. So it might just be my hearing, because I'm getting on a bit. I think you lose hearing for certain tones. In fact, I know you do. I can't really hear Tag Heuer alarms because they are at a certain pitch, whereas Omega alarms, on their quartz watches, I can hear them really well. But apparently it's just my ear, so maybe this is more a Tag Heuer pitch alarm, so it might be fine for you. So don't let that put you off. And you got a stopwatch. Now, one annoying thing is, part of the pleasure of an LCD stopwatch is you got the hundreds of seconds going like, whereas on here you've just got seconds, which is really, really, really boring in comparison. So I don't think I'll be using that. I think I'd get my phone out rather than use that stopwatch. I'm not sure, but when you stop it, oh, I missed it, but I missed it again. When you stop it, it gives you another number, and it says minus. I wondered if that was the hundreds of seconds, but I'm not actually really sure what that is. It does have a lap timer. I've never really seen that before, minus 24. Not sure what that is. But yeah, it has other functions. So it's just a really nice little piece, really, I think. The buttons are that weird, not the easiest to push. You sort of push them. It's like a very hard spring in there. So when you push it, it sort of doesn't hurt your finger, but it kind of, it's not the most tactile button push watch that I've ever experienced. But one thing is the best, save the best till last on this. I've never had a watch that hits the second hand, hits the markers as accurately as this one does. It's by far and away, I noticed this on Jodie's watch that he reviewed, and it was commented on his videos, but it's by far and away the most accurate I've ever had in a quartz. And Casio are normally, I'm not sure that's because I don't see why it would be. I mean, it might just be the module that the Wave Scepter module that they use. But yeah, this is really hitting. I mean, you cannot really see the seconds on the, the parts of 5 minutes markers, but on the actual 5 minute markers, it pretty much, well, it definitely hits them all. On some of them, it's not quite central, but on most of them, it is very, very central. You can see that. Let's come up to 30. I mean, that's slightly to the right, but they're all within the loomed section of the indice. So to me, that's as good as you're going to get, really. I'm very, very pleased with how the second hand hits all the markers because I've got a bit of a thing about that. And this one does it almost perfectly. And you can kind of see, I'd really, 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 really like to have a watch that did hit perfectly. But this is way better than even the other Casios that I've got that do hit the markers pretty well. I always feel it's not so much the movement, actually. It's the where the markers are on the dial. I think it is a very difficult thing to line up, but this one does it. I know I've said it like 5 times now. This one does it really well. So I'm really pleased with it. It's very, very light. It's a bit of a shame that it doesn't, it's going to be a bit potluck, whether it fits people's wrists because of the distance between there. See, that's a little bit tight. The other one's probably a bit loose. But, it is what it is. But, yeah, it's a thumbs up from me. Well, that's turned into a really long video. Hope you've got to the end. Watch it in parts. Hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know if you've got any questions in the comments below. Have a great weekend. One wrist, live it.